Good morning, boys and girls. My name is Miss LaTondra. I am your host. This is your teacher, Mrs. Allison. I hope you are excited to hear what we will be learning about during the lesson today. Miss Allison is going to start by giving you some hints, so have fun.
Good morning. I'm so happy to be here with you today. So here is your first hint. What is the smallest animal you have ever seen? What's that? Your hamster. Okay. Well, here's your second hint. What animal do you know of that is very small but has 6 legs? Does your hamster have 6 legs?
No.
No. If it does, I'm going to need to see a picture of that. If you guessed insects, then you are correct. For the next several days, we will be learning about small, 6-legged insects that have 3 body parts, and they are creepy, crawly insects. And we happen to have some here with us today. Do you know what this is, Miss LaTondra?
I'm not sure, Miss Allison. Which one is that?
That's a grasshopper. What about this insect? I bet you all know this insect.
I know that one. That's a ladybug.
That's right. We're also going to have a few more insects join us today. This is a beautiful insect. Do you know what it is?
I think that's a dragonfly.
You are correct. All right, so when we are done with this unit, here are the things that you are going to know. The first thing you'll know is that insects are the largest group of animals on Earth. The second thing is that there are many different types of insects. Insects live in nearly every habitat on Earth. You will know what characterizes an animal as an insect. You will be able to identify and describe the 3 main body parts of insects and the purpose of each. And you will be able to describe an insect's exoskeleton. The title of today's lesson is Insects Everywhere. I want to find out what you already know about insects before we get started. So look at our KWL chart. The K is for what we know, the W is for what we wonder, and the L is for what we learn. Today we're going to fill in the K and the W part of our chart, and I'm going to ask Miss LaTondra to help us. Miss LaTondra, tell me something that you already know about insects.
What do I know about insects?
Let's look at this picture and see if it helps you any. Do you recognize any of those insects?
I think I do. I see an ant.
That is an ant. You are correct. Do any of these insects live where you live?
Yes, ants and grasshoppers. There's a fly too. All of those live in my area.
They all live in my area too. Can you give me one fact about one of those insects?
Ants build big mounds in my yard, and it seems like thousands of ants live there.
You are right. Ants do build big mounds in our yards, and if you disturb them, it seems like thousands of them will scurry out. We're going to add that to what we know about ants. Is there anything else that you know about insects?
Yes, I believe a habitat is where something lives.
Good. Habitat is a word that we are going to hear today in our lesson. I'm so proud of you. You must have learned that last year in first grade.
I did. Thank you, Miss Allison.
A habitat is a place where plants and animals live. So we're going to add the word habitat under the K as something we already know about insects. Now let's talk about what you wonder. Is there something that you wonder or would like to know about insects?
I wonder what that insect is with the bright colors.
Okay, Miss LaTondra is wondering about that insect that has the bright colored spots on it. So we were going to add that to our W chart. What is the insect with the bright colored spots in the picture. Is there anything else that you wonder, Miss LaTondra?
I also wonder what insects eat.
That is such a good question. I'm so glad you asked that. I bet a lot of you out there are wondering what insects eat. They have such little mouths and they're so small. So we're going to add that to our W chart as well as something we wonder. What do insects eat? Before we get started with our read aloud, we are going to review some new words. Insects live in many habitats on the earth, but there is one habitat in the world that does not have insects. Can you guess what habitat has no insects? We're going to be finding out right after we learn our new words. So our first vocabulary word is host. Say that word with me 3 times. Host, host, host. Good job. How many syllables does host have in it? 1. You're right. Host only has 1 syllable. Let's see what a host is. A host is a plant or an animal that feeds another living thing. A host can also be a home for another living thing. I want to tell you also that a host must be living itself. It must be a living plant or animal. Let's look at a sentence using the word host. The milkweed plant is a host for the monarch butterfly eggs. When the eggs hatch, the caterpillars will eat the leaves of the plant. All right, let's look at our next vocabulary words. We're going to learn the difference between the words social and solitary. So here's our first word, social. I want you to say that word with me 3 times. Ready? Social, social, social. How many syllables does the word social have? Let's try a little trick to find out. All of you at home, put your hand underneath your chin, and when I say the word social, I want you to count how many times your chin hits your hand. Ready? Social. How many times?
I think it was 2.
I got 2. What about you? Did you get 2? If you did, you're correct. The word social has 2 syllables. Now, here's another word that we're going to discuss today, and it's solitary. It's a big word. Say it with me 3 times. Ready? Solitary, solitary, solitary. Let's see how many syllables are in the word solitary. Since it's a little bit bigger, we'll go a little slower. Let's try the hand under the chin trick again. Ready? Solitary.
Wow, that one had a lot of syllables. Was it 4?
I got 4. Did you get 4? If you did, you're correct. There are 4 syllables in the word solitary. Okay, let's look and see what these words mean. Social means living together in communities where everyone has a job and helps each other. Here's a sentence with using the word social. The social honeybees worked all through the night to take care of the queen bee. Do you see that picture of those bees? Look how many there are. It is definitely a large group, so they are very social. Now the word solitary is the opposite of social. Solitary means living alone or in pairs. Let's look at a sentence using the word solitary. A tiger is a solitary animal or hunter because it finds food for itself and its cubs. So as I said, the words social and solitary are opposites. They are called antonyms. All right, Miss LaTondra, we're going to try a little activity now. And I am going to ask you to help me and the boys and girls at home with this activity. I'm going to give you a situation, And I want you to tell me if, first of all, if this is using our word host. If it is a host, if what I name is a host, I want you to give me a thumb up, okay? If it is not a host, I want you to give me a thumb down. All right? Remember, boys and girls, a host must be a living thing. So here's your first situation. A cicada living on a live oak tree.
I think that's a host. I'll give a thumbs up.
What about you? Did you give a thumbs up? If you did, you're correct, because a live oak tree is a living thing. So therefore, the live oak tree is a host. What about a stink bug that lives in a shed? Think about it.
I don't think that's a host.
What about you? No, it's not a host. A shed is a building, so it's not a living thing. All right, what about ants crawling on the sidewalk?
Ants crawling on the sidewalk. That's not a host.
Why do you think that's not a host?
Well, a sidewalk isn't a living thing.
That's right. It's not alive, so you should have given a thumbs down for that. Let's do one more. What about ants that are on an alfalfa plant?
That one's kind of tricky. I'm going to give it a thumbs up.
What about you? Thumbs up? Good, because an alfalfa plant is a living plant. So you are correct. All right, now let's go back and talk about our words social and solitary. We're going to do a little activity with those. Remember, I told you that they are opposites. Do you remember what opposites are called?
Opposites are called antonyms.
That's right. The social and solitary are antonyms because they are opposite. All right, I'm going to describe something, and if you think that it is being solitary, Miss LaTondra, I want you to say that is being solitary. If you think it's being social, I want you to say that is being social. Solitary, sorry. If it's social, say that is being social. If it's solitary, I want you to say that is being solitary. Got it?
Got it.
Good. All right. Now, I want you to try to answer with her at home and see if you're right, okay? All right. So, if I told you that a person lives alone miles away from others, is that being social or is that being solitary?
I think that's being solitary.
Good. Did you say solitary? If you did, you're correct. Your key word there was alone. All right, what about people in a neighborhood having a cookout?
That is being social.
Do you ever go to cookouts in your neighborhood? If you do, then you are being social. All right, what about fish that swim together in big schools or groups?
I definitely think fish are social.
You think fish are social?
I do.
What do you think? What were your words in that sentence that made you think that fish are social?
Together.
Okay, good. If animals are together or people are together with others, they are being social. All right, we have one more. What about a bear hibernating by itself?
Bears are solitary. They don't have a lot of friends, at least not that I know of.
Especially when they're going to hibernate, right? What about you? What did you say? If you said solitary, you are correct. And your key word there, or your clue, was by itself. All right. Now, we are going to move on to our read aloud and get ready to find out more about insects today. As I mentioned earlier, our title of today's lesson is Insects Everywhere. So I want you to put your listening ears on and listen for the one habitat on Earth where there are no insects. Got it? That's what you're going to be listening for. What is the one habitat on Earth where insects cannot survive? All right, I want you to meet a friend of ours here today, and he is actually going to be your narrator. For the next few lessons, there will be a different insect friend that is going to narrate our stories. So remember, you are listening for the only place on earth where there are no insects. Hello, boys and girls. I've been invited to join you today to talk about a very important subject, me. Who knows what type of animal I am? Right, I'm a fly. I'll bet most of you have seen lots and lots of flies, haven't you? I'm told that you find us flies rather annoying, so I'm guessing that you have swatted at one of my billions of cousins at least once in your life. Yeah, you're right. I have definitely swatted at some flies in my lifetime. I'm wondering just how much you know about flies. For example, did you know that I could walk straight up a wall? I bet you can't do that, can you? I have thousands of tiny hairs on my feet that act like suckers. I am a housefly, the most common type, and there are many other fly species on Earth. A species is a group of plants or animals that are alike in important ways. Horseflies, robber flies, fruit flies, gnats, and mosquitoes have many different species that all belong to the same group. Wow, did you hear that? Those tiny hairs on a fly's feet are like suction cups. That's why they can climb vertical surfaces. Vertical means up and down. Horizontal means across. There was another word there that I heard, the word species, and it must be an important word. Luckily, the author told us what it means. I'm going to read that sentence again. A species is a group of plants or animals that are alike in important ways. Boy, I love it when the author gives us the definition of a word right in the text to help us understand what we are reading. Scientists group animals into different categories. What different kinds of animals can you name? Yes, fish, snakes, frogs, birds, and insects are just a few of the animal groups you know. Flies, like me, belong to the largest group of animals on Earth. Who knows which group is the largest? Insects. Insects are small animals with 6 legs and 3 main body parts. We flies are insects, and we share the planet with millions of other insects in many different habitats. Habitats are the natural homes of plants and animals. Can you name a few? Great! Deserts, forests, mountains, grasslands, and the tundra. These are just some you may know about. During the next few lessons, some of my fellow insect friends are going to teach you lots of interesting facts about insects that live in different kinds of habitats. We insects live all over the globe, everywhere except the oceans. Insects can even live in some of very, very cold and very, very hot areas on the earth. We just read some really interesting facts, so let's review so we will remember. What is the largest group of animals on Earth? Insects. That's right. Did you hear the word habitats? Remember, habitats are the natural homes of plants and animals. There was one more very interesting fact in the part I just read. It said that insects live everywhere on the globe except for one place. Where is that? Did you hear it? The ocean. Yes, there are no insects in the ocean. I ask you to listen for that fact, so if you heard it, You can kiss your brain. You did a great job. Let's continue with our read aloud. Let's look at our first habitat. This is a meadow grassland. Look out over this field of alfalfa. Do you see any animals in the picture? It just looks like ordinary grassy field without much going on, doesn't it? But don't be fooled. This field is teeming with life. If you sat down in the middle of this meadow and closed your eyes, you would likely hear birds singing. But you might be completely unaware of the other silent, hidden world of insects all around you. I just heard a really odd phrase in that part. It said teeming with life. Do you know what that means? Teeming with life means full of life. So although it doesn't look like there are any animals in this picture, it is actually full of living animals, including insects. Many insects depend on plants to live. Many insects eat plants, and some lay their eggs on plants. The plant on which an insect lays its eggs and which provides food for its young acts as host and is called a host plant. Each host plant attracts different types of insects. Many insects would die without their host plants because they have developed very specific diets needed to live. I believe I heard one of our vocabulary words that we just read. We discussed this before our lesson. It was the word host. Do you remember what we said a host was? A host is a plant or animal that feeds another living thing. Remember, a host must be a living thing. A host can also be a home for another living thing. In this picture, we see a host plant, and that is where the insect has laid its eggs. Many meadow plants attract grasshoppers. Grasshoppers feed on the leaves and stems of the alfalfa plant. Harder to find is the tiny leafhopper, but this wedge-shaped insect can slow down the plant's growth, turning it brown as it sucks nutrition from its host plant. Many insects, such as these tiny aphids, can damage entire meadows. Grasshoppers, leafhoppers, and aphids are all pests. Farmers are never happy when they discover them on their plants because they can destroy their crops. But not all insects are pests. So as we look at our slide here, we see a grasshopper at the top, and underneath the grasshopper is the leafhopper. And over to the right side, we see those tiny little bugs called aphids. So some insects are pests and can destroy a farmer's crops, and that is not good. In our next lesson, we will read to learn about insects that are not pests. Let's review our vocabulary words that we have learned today. First, we learned the word host. A host is a plant or animal that feeds another living thing. A host can also be a home for another living thing. Next, we learned the difference between social and solitary. Social means to live in a community, and solitary means to live alone. In our next lesson, we will read to learn which insects are social and which are solitary. All right, so now we're going to look back at our KWL chart and see what we can add to it. I want you to tell me one fact that you remember from our lesson today, Miss LaTondra.
What did I remember? I remember that flies have those tiny hairs on their feet, like suckers, so they can walk up walls.
Wasn't that strange? I always wondered. In fact, look what has landed on my pointer.
Oh, wow, it's a fly.
Apparently, he is using his suckers on the bottom of his feet to stick to my pointer. Well, he's been a pretty nice guy today, so we're going to let him hang out as we add these things. So our first fact is that flies have tiny hairs on their feet that are like suckers. This helps them to walk up vertical walls. Remember, vertical is straight up, horizontal is across. All right, what else did you learn, Miss LaTondra?
That insects are the largest group of animals on Earth.
Apparently, our friend the fly was very proud of that fact. So let's add that to under our L on our chart. All right, what's something else that you learned today?
Oceans are the only habitat where insects do not live.
Wow, did you hear that? Hopefully you heard that in the read aloud and you got it correct. We're going to add that to our chart as well, that oceans are the only habitat on Earth where insects do not live. We're going to learn more about that in our next lesson. Is there anything else that you learned today?
I also learned that insects eat plants.
You're right. Sometimes that's not a good thing, is it?
Not all the time.
That's right. Remember we heard about farmers, and farmers don't like these pests on their crops because it can destroy their crops. So, after we have filled out our KWL chart, during our next lesson, we will be adding more under our L for what we learn.
Thank you so much, boys and girls, for joining us today. All rights and credits from this lesson belong to Core Knowledge, Language Arts. We would like to thank them for publicly sharing these materials.
All right, boys and girls, use what you learned today and tell someone at home the amazing facts that you learned about insects. If you are interested in reading more about insects, please feel free to check out these books. You can access these books at your local library or online. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you again soon.